Welcome. This is Uncommon Sense, a podcast presented by the Heshi CPA Knowledge Center. The Center is an initiative of the CPA Education Foundation, the charitable arm of the Chartered Professional Accountant profession in Alberta. Our episodes feature conversations with Alberta CPAs sharing their insights on a wide range of timely topics. Alberta CPAs work in every part of the economy and volunteer their time and expertise in virtually every community in Alberta. With each episode, we bring you voices and perspectives that reflect the diverse knowledge and contributions that CPAs bring to our province.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense. Our guest today is Jim Sand, CPA, CA, CAFM, a longtime Alberta CPA with a distinguished record of achievement as a business leader, entrepreneur, and senior accountant. He has overseen dozens of mergers and acquisitions, worked in real estate development, and established himself as a busy and successful entrepreneur. On top of all that, Jim is also a very active volunteer in his community and for his profession, lending his time and expertise to a wide variety of organizations and causes. As a Métis Albertan, Jim has spent the last 7 years of his career working with Indigenous organizations and businesses in Alberta, British Columbia, and the Northwest Territories, and he's earned his Certified Aboriginal Financial Manager, or CAFM, designation. Jim is here today to talk about his career and where it has taken him, as well as his commitment to volunteerism and community causes. His story is fascinating, and I look forward to hearing more about it. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks a lot, Gordon. I appreciate you talking with me today.
And thanks for driving in from Onaway on a crazy winter morning. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, just for history, it's pretty slippery out there.
Well, good to know. I'm glad you can make it in safely. So, Jim, as always, I'm going to start off by asking you to share a piece of uncommon sense with us. That might be a word of wisdom or a life hack you've picked up at some point along your journey. Do you have something to share with us?
Yeah, I'd like to just kind of talk about, from my perspective, like right through from high school as a young fellow, I've always looked for mentors. Didn't matter what I was doing, whether I wanted to learn to ride horses, whether I was playing hockey, later on in life in my career and where I wanted to head. I've always looked to mentors, finding people that were doing what I wanted to do and then learning from them. And then, of course, throughout my career, I've mentored a few people as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I think that's so important no matter what you're doing in your life to have a mentor and then to pay it back when you have the opportunity to help someone else along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And with CPA Alberta, I've a couple times I've mentored people in the profession that wanted mentorship, and I've been involved in the program. But I've also just done it organically. Like if someone asks questions or something, I'll always offer my time to help someone out because people have offered their time to help me out.
That's fantastic. So thanks for that, Jim. And before we get into discussing your career, I understand you grew up in Jasper. What was that like growing up in one of Canada's most famous national parks?
Well, I consider myself quite lucky. It's kind of a foundation in my life. To this day, I still love being out in the bush. I still like spending time out there. Growing up in Jasper, I had opportunities to play hockey, to ski, downhill, cross-country, backcountry skiing, to fish, learning to hunt out on the eastern slopes of the Rockies. It was a great place to grow up with a great bunch of people in a very small town, and I appreciated it so much. And I'm glad my parents both moved there.
Yeah, it must have been especially tough to see that fire out there that they had.
Yeah, for myself, just personally, I had 6 friends and families that lost their houses there and a brother that lost his apartment. And because of it, he's not moving back to Jasper just because of the housing shortage there now.
Wow, that's tough to hear for sure.
It is bad. The good thing is people are starting to rebuild their houses now. So that's the good part of it.
Yeah. Well, the rebuild is going to be, I think, pretty positive for the whole country to see, actually. So, Jim, can you talk about your journey to becoming a CPA? Why did you decide on that career path?
Well, I'm not sure I ever decided on it. When I left Jasper, I went to a year at Red Deer College. had a great time there, but I didn't really study that hard. So I took a few years off, worked for a while, went back to Red Deer College, and one of my instructors there, I ran into him one night. We were out having a beer, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was in business, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I asked him, what's the quickest way to get to the top of a company? And he said, well, get your CPA.
Oh.
I thought about it for a couple days. I didn't really know about it. I had one friend growing up, his dad was a CPA, so I called him, and he said the same thing, and that's what sent me down the road to becoming a CPA.
Wow, so it was some advice from other people that led you to that path.
Yes, I didn't know it was going to be so difficult to get my designation, but it was well worth it.
It's best not to know going in.
Yes, exactly.
You've used your CPA designation in a variety of ways over the years, from serving as a chief financial officer to establishing your own business. What have been some of your personal career highlights, whether that means travel opportunities, personal achievements, or something else?
Well, it's hard to just say one. I've been very lucky in my career that I've been exposed to a lot of things, from raising money to working in multi-country, multi-division businesses, to working with First Nations and doing a number of things. Travel has definitely been one of the highlights in my career that I've been able to do. I've been to Taiwan, I've been to Honduras, I've been to Jamaica, I've been over most of the United States, almost all of Canada, except for Nunavut. I've never been to Nunavut for work, but I've been pretty much everywhere. So that was a real highlight. And then one specific project I think that I really enjoyed the most, and I think if I defined my career by something, it would be it. And it was putting together a trust for the Bearspaw First Nation, where they had about $60 million, and they had been trying for about 15 years to move that money and put it into a trust. And while I was there, I was able to work with the CEO and the chief and counsel to get that done. So now they have a legacy trust that's going to serve them for centuries to come.
Wow, I mean, that's a pretty significant achievement for sure.
It is, and it's at the end of it, after all the struggles and everything you go through to put a business project together like that, there's a sense of accomplishment that you really hits home.
Yeah. So with all that travel, what would you say was the most interesting place you've ever visited outside of Canada?
I would say probably Taiwan. I was earlier on in my career, I had taken on I was the CFO of the company, but I had also taken on kind of an operations role at the same time. We had a pipeline division that did integrity work, so running pipeline pigs and looking at pipelines, and basically the technology is that you can tell where there's problems in the pipeline. And so Taiwan has a lot of pipelines, and we were doing business over there. The person that was running that division decided to leave the company, so I ended up kind of doing a dual role at the time. And so I was spending about a week and a half every 3 months over in Taiwan for the better part of a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
Taiwan is Taipei, the main city there is where we stayed, is a very interesting place. Huge, big city. I'm not used to huge, big cities, but it was, for me, Métis kid from the mountains, it was quite impressive.
And you must have gotten the opportunity to learn your way around a bit if you were going there repeatedly over the course of a year.
Yeah, I did. And one of the things that I really enjoyed when I was over there, when I wasn't working, was I loved to go to the parks in the city and watch people do Tai Chi.
Oh, yeah.
It was really cool to watch that. And later on in my life, when I was about 50, I started practicing Kung Fu. Training for Kung Fu, and part of that was the school I was at was doing Tai Chi. So it came about, I don't think I intentionally did it, but it just came about where I started to learn Tai Chi.
Well, that is a really cool story for sure. So how has your CPA designation helped you achieve your career goals? You've obviously done so many different things, and the CPA designation has been a common thread through it, I guess.
with my CPA, the one thing that I'll talk about is the education and how it taught me to look at problems, at issues, at things. And it's a very holistic approach of doing that in my training. And because of that, in business, whenever something came up, whether it was a new job or a project or something I'd never done before, I just relied on that training, went and learned as much as I could about what I was trying to do, ask mentors, ask people that had done it before, and just learn from there. And I think at the core of a CPA designation, I think that's what it is that foundational learning.
So it's learning and problem solving or learning how to solve problems, understand and solve problems.
Yeah, beyond tax, beyond accounting, beyond those sorts of things. It's more of a how do you use your mind to look at what's in front of you and then get to where you want to go to.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I understand you are now primarily an entrepreneur and CFO. What led you to move into that kind of career role at this point in your life?
Well, I think from a young age, I always was an entrepreneur. I kind of started my first business with a buddy of mine when we were 12. We were sweeping out parking lots in Jasper. We would go up to the business owners and, this was back in a time before, not everyone had machines and that to do things. So we just had a long broom, the two of us, and that's what we did for a summer. We were very young, 12 years old, I think, and he was 14. And that's where I started out. My dad worked for the railway in Jasper, but he always had what I'll call a side gig. He always was doing something on the side to make other money. And so I think I just naturally learned through that. And Jasper's a very unique little town. Yes, a lot of people work for the government, and a lot of people work for the government, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs in Jasper that provide services to the town and to the park. So you just naturally run into entrepreneurs everywhere.
So it's been in your blood since you were a kid, basically.
I think so, yes. Because it's not an easy thing to do. It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of planning and it doesn't always work out the way you think it will.
So as a kid approaching businesses to see if you could clean up their parking lots and so on, were you kind of nervous approaching people or were you pretty out there and extroverted?
I've never really been an extrovert, no. But I always saw a need, in business, you got to solve a problem or solve someone's if they have a need, and that's what I saw. And so, I think having my buddy there with me helped a lot. When you approach someone to say, we'll do this work for you if you pay us this amount of money. Yeah. So
other than identifying a need that needs to be filled, what would you say are the other keys to being a successful entrepreneur these days?
I truly think that partnerships are needed. No one can have all the skill sets they need to run a business, small business or any business. And you need partnerships. You need people that you can work with, that you can trust, you can rely on, to help you do the things that you aren't good at doing yourself, or the flip side, that you don't want to do. You may be good at it, but maybe you don't want to do it.
Yeah. Anything else you think is important to being an entrepreneur successfully?
Geez, I think you have to be willing to talk with people, to be around people, and want to work with people. I don't care what business it is. That's the foundation of any business is people.
You often hear, or I often hear, that people starting out in their own business or a small business, they have to work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. Is that still something that's true in most cases based on your experience?
I think that's kind of normal because when you're starting out with a business, you don't have anything in place. And if you want your business to be successful, you got to put in processes. You've got to put in, whether that's accounting, marketing, sales, whatever it is, you've got to put those all in place. And you don't have that at the beginning of a business. The great thing about living right now is that there's so much technology out there that can help you with those things that wasn't around, 30, 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah. And you can do a lot of things from home now that you couldn't before.
Absolutely. The internet and the cloud can do incredible things in a business and can make them very productive on maybe the things that most entrepreneurs aren't good with, accounting, finance, those sorts of things. But they're really good at the product that they're selling or the product that they're providing. And so they can focus on that rather than on the stuff that they're not good at or they don't want to do.
Yeah.
They can use technology to do it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that. And I want to turn now to focus on some of your volunteer activities and achievements. Just reading about your background, you've done so many things in the community and for the CPA profession. It'd be impossible to touch on all of them here today, but I want to talk about a few of them. And let's start with your involvement with the Accounting Standards Board, a role which I understand wraps up for you very shortly. Can you talk about what the Accounting Standards Board is and what your involvement has been?
Sure. So the Accounting Standards Board is the Canadian standard setter for all accounting rules, GAAP, in Canada. And Canadian GAAP became a lot more complicated going back to when the Canadian standard setters decided to incorporate IFRS, International Financial Accounting Standards, into Canada. So people may not know this, but there's really 5 standards that are followed for accounting in Canada. There's IFRS or Canadian IFRS, which is part 1. Part 2 is for private companies. Part 3 is for not-for-profits. Part 4 is for pensions. And then there's public sector accounting. The Accounting Standards Board doesn't deal with public sector accounting standards, but they deal with all the other 4. And so for myself, when I first joined the board, it was another one of those things. Had I known the work and what it would take to sit on that board, I may have had a second thought about it. Now, having said that, I learned so much and got to meet some of the smartest people in Canada that sit on that board. And the process is going through the process of how do you take a perceived problem in accounting, bring it in, provide or make the standard, get all the consultation from people that need to give input into that to end up getting to a new standard that will go into Canadian GAAP. So that process is quite fascinating and it's very robust. And so sitting on the board, I've the terms are 3 years, and I made the decision that after this one term that I would step down. The commitment on that board is about 300 hours a year. So it's not a small task. And I am going to miss the people that I worked with on that board because, like I said, not only were they really good people, but some of the smartest people in Canada, in my opinion.
Yeah, I believe you. So just for our non-accountants who are listening, What is GAAP?
GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles. So in our professions, when you present a set of financial statements, there's a set of rules that go with that you have to follow in order for those statements to match what that GAAP standard is. And then there's all different levels of types of reporting, from an audit to a review engagement to just a preparation of financial statements. So there's all different levels and all of that, and that's what GAAP covers. That's what our accounting handbook in Canada, which has the standards in it, that's what it covers.
All right, thanks for that. So I'm thinking, for non-accountants, all of this might sound a little dry and irrelevant, but why are accounting standards important to the people accountants serve?
Well, the whole purpose of providing a set of financial statements with the set of standards is so that the public can rely on those financial statements. So if you're an investor, say you're an investor in, I don't know, an example in TELUS. Well, you want to know that financial information coming to you quarterly and on a yearly basis, you can rely on that. And that's really the purpose of standards, is so there's reliability in those statements and there's comparability between companies when you look at those statements.
Yeah, so obviously that's really important to companies themselves as well as people who invest and even people who use their services.
Well, yeah, and if you take it down from, say, a public company down to, say, a private company, well, if you're borrowing from a bank or another lender or that, they want to know that those statements that they're receiving are prepared the same way, because they're relying on those statements to make a lending decision to your company.
Right. Well, thanks for that, Jim.
Yeah,
That makes
you
a
bet.
makes a lot of sense. You're also involved with the Westview Health Center Foundation in a volunteer capacity. So can you tell us what that foundation is and who does it serve?
Yeah, the Westview Health Foundation is the health foundation. If you think something comparable in Edmonton, it'd be the Stollery Foundation that supports the Stollery Hospital. So that's what we do. The Westview Hospital, they're not called a hospital, but they are a hospital. And we support the Westview Hospital, which is the hospital in Stony Plain.
Okay.
That hospital supports about 100,000 people in Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, Parkland County, Lac St. Anne County, all the way out to Yellowhead County, out by Evansburg. And so what we do is we raise money to help with capital equipment, with programs, and with those sorts of things. We just released in the last day our community impact statement. We spent in the community last year, I think it was about $692,000 on programs and equipment for the hospital, mental health programs in the community. So there's a lot of things that we do, but primarily we're there to help support the Stony Plain Hospital.
Wow, that's important work. And I understand you've been on that foundation board since 2023. Over those 2 or 3 years, what have been your personal priorities as a board member?
Well, when I first got onto the board, I was recruited onto the board because of my financial background, but also because of my business background. So we changed. I don't want to say changed because it sounds like something was going wrong to begin with. There wasn't. It was a small community board that was helping the hospital. The executive director that recruited me onto the board understood the need to become more of a professional board. And so she did the work to recruit players. We added more procedures within the board so that decision-making was much more transparent. Getting to the goal, because we knew at some point we were going to have a large project that was going to come our way. And that project was announced by the provincial government back in November of 2025. And that is, we are raising money right now, about $5.1 million to put a CT scanner into the Stony Plain Hospital. Wow,
and how's that been going so far since November?
So far, it's been going good. Raising that much money is again, it's a process. You just don't go out and start knocking on doors. So we put a plan in place. We're working on that plan. We're in not pre-feasibility, but we'll just call it fundraising to the public. We're still out asking private parties, and we're building those relationships and doing that to get some of the big dollars in before we kind of open it up to the public to start getting more funds for that. So our goal is within 2 years we'll have those funds raised and we'll be able to put the CT scanner in the hospital.
It must be a unique project to fundraise in such a wide-ranging area, many different communities, different towns, very far apart from each other, compared to being in a consolidated area like Edmonton or Calgary. So some unique challenges there, perhaps?
Unique challenges or unique opportunities as well. So we have a lot more municipalities in that area than, say, in Edmonton. You may have different wards, but you basically have one municipality. Where in our community, in the coverage area that we cover, I think if you add all the towns, summer villages and all that, maybe 20 municipalities in that whole area that we cover. So there's opportunities within that to be able to raise funds. The great thing about where we live out in the Stony Plain area, again, there's a lot of very successful entrepreneurs out there that are very willing to help out the community. So that's great for our foundation as well, and for this fundraising project.
Yeah, well, that's great. And it sounds like it's going to be a big success. So good luck with that.
Thank you.
You've also previously served as a director with the Lac St. Anne Food Bank. What was that experience like for you?
That was really good. I was again recruited onto that board to help out initially with doing the financing accounting for it. It's a small group, but it serves a lot of people in that Lac St. Anne, Alberta Beach, Alexis Nakota First Nation, and that's kind of the area that the food bank covers. And it's been very rewarding. In the last couple of years, I kind of stepped down. I still sit as a director, but I'm not very much involved on a day-to-day basis. But through COVID and some of those challenges that we've especially had in the last 3 years with inflation, cost of groceries, and that, the need is significant. In that local community, because again, we're not a big area, so it's a lot of local people helping local people.
Wow, that sounds great.
Yeah,
very important work.
Yeah.
So what motivates you to dedicate so much of your time and expertise to these volunteer causes? Is there a common thread or focus that runs through all of your volunteer commitments?
I wouldn't say for actually what I'm volunteering for, but I'll go back to my mom and dad. And they didn't tell me to go out in the community and volunteer in that. I just learned from watching them. They were both very involved in our local community. My dad sat on the Legion board for 25 years. My mom was always involved in community events, in school events, in those sorts of things. My dad, he as a young boy, he never got to play hockey, but he learned how to play baseball, so he coached baseball and that. And you just kind of pick that up from watching what your parents did. I don't think I was ever told to go and do this. I just, that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, well, that's what I'll do. Yeah.
Well, that's a neat story, and it really shows the impact that parents have, not by what they say, but what they do.
And again, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about mentorship. Sometimes mentorship is just watching what's happening around you.
Yeah. I mentioned in my introduction of you that you've earned the Certified Aboriginal Financial Manager designation. So what's that designation, and how has it helped you in your career?
Yeah, that designation is, there's an organization in Canada, it's called AFOA, which was originally called the Aboriginal Financial Officers Association, which was an association that was put together to try and help First Nations, Métis, Inuit communities bring up the standard of financial people and financial reporting in their communities. Well, AFOA now has kind of taken on a more roles than what they originally started out. So they have a designation for financial managers. They have a designation for band managers. They have a designation for human resources. And they have one now, and I don't remember the name of it, but it's basically a designation for young nation members to get a designation to learn about how to run a nation, how to get involved in the nation. And so they have that designation out there. And so I found out about them because of my work, and I knew a few people that got the designation. So I just decided to do that. And it was very rewarding for me to get that. There's a separate path for someone with a CA to get that designation than someone else. So I did that. But, from a career point of view, I was able to attend a seminar at Harvard Business School, which was a week-long course, basically done with cases. But in that course, there was 80 individuals that were either First Nation from their own country. So Canada was represented there, the US was represented there, Australia was represented there, and New Zealand was represented there. So you got to sit in a room with 80 people that are basically doing the exact thing you're doing and learn from them. And it was so cool. And I got to meet some of the people from Australia and New Zealand. And for me, it was quite the education experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. What year was that, or how long ago was that?
I did that, think I did it in the spring of 23.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever stay in touch with any of those people you met?
Through LinkedIn and that, I still keep in contact and keep, going through, because the great thing about a tool like LinkedIn is you learn about people and the successes they're having in their own careers and that. So it's a great, as I say, technology for keeping up to date with people.
Yeah. Excellent. And I just got one more question for you before we wrap up. It's been a great discussion, so thanks, Jim. And I want to ask, has your heritage as a Métis Albertan been a factor for you personally in terms of your career history and choices? What has being a Métis meant to you as a business person?
That's a very interesting question. I was listening to one of your guests on one of the previous podcasts. She was Métis as well. And it was interesting because her story was somewhat similar to mine. As a younger fellow growing up, a lot of our heritage was hidden. Let's put it that way. I didn't grow up around where my grandma grew up, which was Paddle Prairie, Alberta. I grew up in Jasper, but we didn't talk about our heritage much. It just wasn't something that came up. But as I started in my career and I progressed, I learned more about my heritage. I learned more about it. And then a lot of things started making sense outside of business. Why did I like being in the bush? Why did I like hunting? Why did I these were just things that I naturally took on. We knew we were Métis, but we didn't have that strong connection to our history. And since university, I've been a reader of history, Western Canadian history, Western U.S. history, world history, travel history, and that. So I've learned a lot about it. But I think when it comes now down to business and that is, over the years, I think I've taken on more of some of my cultural practices. Call it that if you want. Mm-hmm. But basically, I sit back more and listen now than I ever did earlier on in my career. Earlier on in my career, I was gung-ho to get things done and that. So I tended to talk more than I listen, but now I tend to listen more than I talk. And I think I'm better at what I do now because I do that. And that's very much comes from the Métis tradition, going back to the Red River Valley where my family was originally from. And just, you listen and then you talk and then you listen again. And it's that sort of what it is. So in business now, I'm in a meeting and yeah, I'll talk in those meetings and that, but I'm more interested in what other people are saying.
That's a great piece of mentorship right there. So Thanks for sharing that, and thanks for those insights, Jim.
Yeah.
It's been great chatting with you. Thanks again for driving in from Onaway to join me in the studio here in Edmonton today. It's been a great discussion, and as well, thanks for all you do to support your community and communities across Alberta. It's so important to have people like you doing that, and I'm sure it's really appreciated and valued out wherever you're helping out. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate your time, Gordon, and good luck with the podcast. Again, I've listened to a lot of the people that have been on here, and there's a lot of great content. And I learn every time I listen to one of the podcasts. I hope people learn from this one.
I think they will for sure. There's no doubt about that. Thanks again, Jim.
Thank you.
The Uncommon Sense podcast is presented by the CPA Education Foundation and funded by the Heshie CPA Knowledge Center. The Knowledge Center was created through a generous donation by the late Brian Heshie. Brian was a distinguished Albertan, business leader, CPA, educator, and community builder. His generosity and commitment to education underpinned his good works across Alberta throughout his lifetime. The opinions expressed on Uncommon Sense do not necessarily reflect the views of the CPA Education Foundation. We would like to acknowledge that CPA Education Foundation offices are situated on the traditional Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 territories and Métis Nation homeland. The Foundation acknowledges that we reside on traditional and ancestral territories of many Indigenous, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Their histories and culture influence our community to this day. The Foundation is committed to helping build a province where Indigenous people and their voices and experiences are heard, valued, respected, and celebrated. Technical and recording services for this podcast provided by Wolf Willow Studios in Edmonton. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about us. If you have any comments about the podcast, write to us at cpaef@cpaalberta.ca. To learn more about the CPA Education Foundation and the Heshie CPA Knowledge Centre, visit cpaalberta.ca/foundation. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search for the CPA Education Foundation.